Welcome to Yankee Chronicle. I'm your host, Abby Peel, and today we are coming to you from MainStreet BookEnds in Warner, a family-owned independent bookstore serving the New Hampshire area since 1998. Today we have a special presentation, the League of Women Voters Forum of candidates to be voted on March 12th, followed on Wednesday with the town meeting. After these words from our underwriters, we will join the moderator to hear from the candidates.
This program is supported by MainStreet BookEnds of Warner for books, toys, games, cards, gifts, and a gallery of local art. MainStreet BookEnds of Warner.
Welcome tonight to this candidate forum for Warner. My name is Liz Tentarelli. I'm president of the League of Women Voters of New Hampshire and a proud member of this local league that has sponsored this. If you wish, please stand up and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I want to thank you all for coming. I thank the candidates for contested offices who are going to be up here answering your questions after they've introduced themselves. Apparently some of you have already written out questions, which is fine. I will also take questions from the floor. So we may not get to cover every single question. We will take one question from a person, and then I ask that person to refrain from asking another until everybody else has had a chance. We will be timing the candidates. They have 2 minutes for their opening statements and then 2 minutes for most of the questions. And my timer, Sarah, in the front row, will hold up a yellow card, please demonstrate, which means that they have 30 seconds left, and then a red card at the end of the 2 minutes. And I ask you to finish your sentence and then stop and give the next person a turn. So we're going to get started. They drew luck of the draw to see who is going to go first. And we're going to start with Faith Minton. She drew first, and then we'll move on to the Budget Committee candidates, and then we'll end up on that introduction with Karen Coyne. As I said, I will take questions from the floor out loud, but if you have written a question or want to write a question, I have 2 helpers who are going to be going around the room collecting those questions. So just kind of hold it up in the air if you have a piece of paper with a question. My name is Liz Tentarelli. I'm president of the League of Women Voters of New Hampshire and a proud member of this local league that has sponsored this. And I want to thank YCN Now, that's Yankee Cable Network, who are taping this for us. And it will be broadcast on Yankee Cable Network starting tomorrow at 1, and then it's also on demand at ycnnow.com. But it's being broadcast thanks to the generosity of MainStreet BookEnds. So thank you to that company for sponsoring us. If we have any candidates here who are running uncontested, we'll take a little break in maybe half an hour and let you just come up in front. We'll hand you a microphone. You can introduce yourselves and what office you're running for, just so that people can put faces to names on the ballot. But we're going to focus on the contested offices. We have 2 people running for a 1-year seat on the select board, and we have 3 people running for a 3-year term, 2 seats on the budget committee. We're going to have fun tonight, right, folks? Okay. All right. Now the candidates will introduce themselves and tell a little bit about themselves and why they're running for office, and we're starting with Faith Minton. Thank you, Faith.
Well, welcome everybody. It's great to see so many of you here tonight. We have a really engaged community, which is wonderful, and that's the Warner that I've known for many years. I've lived here in Warner for over 45 years with my husband David, raising our family here. Our sons grew up here and attended the local schools. Over the past decades, I've served our community in many ways on different boards and capacities, including the Kearsarge Children's Center. I was one of the founders and the board president. Fall Foliage Festival, volunteer in years as a recruiter and coordinator of the food tent, volunteers. Simon School PTO, member and a volunteer coordinator, Warner Parks and Rec committee member, Friends Program youth mentor for Warner Girls. I've been a volunteer at Pine Rock Manor, bringing my dog as a support pet. MainStreet Warner Board, Incorporated board member, and elected Kearsarge School District board member as a Warner representative. So in every board and committee that I've served on, I always seek to work collaboratively with others, finding solutions in a respectful way. So when asked this past summer, I agreed to serve as an appointed select board member because I care about our town. And I anticipated only serving until this March election, only 8 months. But I found that I enjoyed working with the other board members and the interim town administrator, serving to get the work of the town done. So I am interested in continuing with the intention to continue to work towards a stable, well-functioning town government. The interim town administrator encouraged me to run as he saw that the select board was working effectively to move the town forward. I feel the community has been moving in a positive direction, and I would like to continue to fill out the one-year term to provide stability, continuity, and supporting our new town administrator, Kathy Frenette. I feel I am well suited to serve on the select board for the next year, and I appreciate your support and vote on Tuesday, March 12th for continued stability for Warner. Thank you.
Mr. Richard Bixby, running for the Budget Committee.
Yeah, I'm Richard Bixby. So thanks everybody for coming out here tonight. This is a lot larger than I thought it would be. But so the last 2 years I was on the Budget Committee, and I really enjoyed being on it. The first year I felt some things kind of got pushed down our throats, and I thought I could have went better, but this past year I really enjoyed it. I thought things went a lot smoother, and I thought we did a pretty good job. And you know, I'm raising a family in this town, and you know, times can be challenging, and I think it's important, you know, to have a good group of people, you know, on the Budget Committee to, you know, get the right budget and you know, put things together to service the town properly. So I'd appreciate your vote on March 12th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bixby. And we're up to Mr. Hanson, Alfred Hanson. Thank you.
My name is Alfred Hanson. I was brought up in this town. About probably 12, 13, probably longer than that, 15 years ago. I sat in on a budget committee and I had a hard time understanding what I was seeing. It bothered me deeply. I saw town fathers as I grew up in the process of trying to be responsible on both ends. And the key word is responsible. Be responsible to provide the services that we need to exist. And also, the one thing that I think is missing right now is the responsibility that the Budget Committee has to the taxpayers. So, the real reason why I'm up here is my wallet. And I took on that position years ago, and I thought we made great strides. We worked very hard in that budget process. I was on for 12 years. So I think we need to get back to basics. And and move on from there. Because if we don't, I don't know. I would love to live here the rest of my life.
Mr. James Sherman.
Yeah, my name is James F. Sherman. Lived in Warner for about 15 years now. Moved up from the Boston area. Love the community. We have a great site, so we built a home here. And since we've been here, I've been active with like the Fall Festival, hauling stuff around and working with some of the folks on special projects, and have been attending town meetings, and I vote on a regular basis. I'm also a person that unfortunately pays one of the highest tax bills in the city, in the town, and I'm a little concerned that it's going up as much as it is. Now, I sat on the budget committee for this year. I've been on the budget committee for 1 year, and some of the things which I've noticed is, yes, we need to control the budget. I didn't realize the town budget, though, is only 32.4% of our tax bill. The rest of it's the school district. Saying we can't control that. And I have a unique qualification. I'm the second person on the board. I'm a CPA. I understand finance. I understand accounting. I know how things should look. And I would love to see better interaction with some of the work that's done by our accountants. And I think we need to look at how we borrow monies and the overall expenses. But I became a lender. I've done all kinds of loans, and I would like to move forward. A lot of people in the community have said we need to go to zero-based budgeting. And I think there are 4 departments that are large that we could look at, and they would be DPW, police, fire, and the transfer station. And the other thing which I would like to address is that I think we need a capital budget that's not a 1-year budget. I think we need a 5 to 7-year capital budget so the town understands it. And I would appreciate your vote on March 12th.
Thank you, Mr. Sherman. And Karen Coyne, running for Select Board.
Hi, I'm Karen Coyne. My husband and I live on a small farm here in town. I love the town of Warner, but I have some concerns about the direction the town is headed. I've been on the planning board for roughly 2 years, and that's given me insight into how the town is being run. I have a strong business background. Professionally, I work with multi-million-dollar budgets, and I understand the importance of transparency and accountability. 3 years ago, we were 40th in the state as it relates to highest property taxes. Today, we are 9th. The current select board has voted for another double-digit increase, and people are being taxed out of their homes. I would like to see some third-party audit results and start finding the path to reasonable spending. I also see a lot of division, and I look to bring a level head and some stability to what's been going on in town. With my commitment to lower taxes, responsible and transparent government, fiscal responsibility, and preserving our vital natural resources, I will bring a much-needed perspective to the board and ensure that the town's resources are being used in the most efficient and effective manner, all while maintaining our important town services. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Coyne. I've got some questions here for the Select Board, so we're going to ask that. Several questions about taxes. Gee, I wonder why. And I'll let you address them as you wish. One of the questions is, can you give me 1 or 2 instances where the Budget Committee could have or should have voted to save money for the taxpayers within the past year? What are you going to do about lowering taxes? Because Warner is becoming unaffordable. So you can choose to answer either of those in whichever way you wish. And we're going to start with Mr. Bixby.
Well, I think, like this guy always says right here, he's always talking about wants and needs, and this town really got to focus on the needs and not so much the wants. And I guess that's all I really got to say.
Thank you. And Mr. Hanson, either what are you going to do about lowering taxes, or an instance where the budget committee in the last year could have or should have voted to save money?
Well, the last year I thought there could be a lot less okays and a whole lot more questions. I followed the budget committee this past year, and I felt that there was a lot of good questions that were asked, but no answers. I think when I was on the budget committee, I learned at the very beginning, the very first year I was on, there was something that bothered me the most. And what it was the budget committee would sit together and we would get bombarded, maybe not bombarded, but the department heads would come into us and tell us, okay, this number. Well, the first year that I was involved with that, I finally figured out at the end of that process year that that number needed answers. And for myself, being on that board, I wasn't getting the answers that I wanted. I wanted the answers on the needs. I did not want answers of what you want. What do you need to operate your department for the fiscal year coming up? Well, that really didn't start taking place until the second year, when I, myself, and a couple of others started to get more aggressive in asking for these answers. And as those answers started coming, okay, the wants started to evaporate a little bit and the needs started to fall into place. That's what I want. I want the department heads to give us the needs. We don't need the wants.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hanson. Would you hand the microphone, please, to Mr. Sherman? Thank you. And Mr. Sherman, what decision in the past year would you have done differently, or what is your plan for reducing taxes?
The first thing that I think we should do is go back to what I said earlier, and that's go to zero-based budgeting. And not for every department, because some departments are one person or two persons. But go to the larger departments and analyze them, and then report back to the community where the monies are spent. I think that could be an effective way to do it, and personally, I've done zero-based budgeting for clients over the years, and that would be a good place to go. As far as things that we probably this year could have looked at more, the budgeting process is a very difficult process because you can't go over the budget. So looking at revenues, I mean, one of the reasons we have the issue we have this year, and by the way, we're not going to go up double digits in taxes this year. I've done a complete analysis, I've looked at the school and everything else, and it's far less than 10%. But we lost over $200,000 in revenue this last year. It has nothing to do with expenses. We lost that because that was money we got during the pandemic. That money was taken away from us, like every other town. In fact, I was shocked when I saw that. So we need to look at ways that we could increase the revenues. And it's not just the budget committee, it's the community. We need to maybe bring in some more business that can share some of the taxes. There's things that we could do, but there's a lot that goes on in this town, and if you came to some of the budget meetings, you would see. But I think the biggest thing we need to do is look at revenues, see if we can increase them, and the other thing is to go to a zero-based budgeting program.
Thank you, Mr. Sherman. Let's do a question for the two candidates for select board. And I think this is a select board issue. I'll quote, "What's the deal with TDS continuing to increase our internet rates? Why are we trapped with TDS?" I think you're hearing a voter's concerns here. How would you address that if you were on the select board? Because I do think the select board has some effect on the internet providers. Ms. Coyne?
I too am concerned with my TDS rates and lack of reliability. From what I understand, it was a provider that came into the town before I was here. I would imagine there's some negotiating that can go on, whether it's to bring other providers to town or whether it's working with other towns to create a force, right, and address the concern, but I guess it's...
Thanks, Karen. Well, I think maybe they have the lines up. I'm pretty sure TDS has all the lines. And I think that's part of the issue, is that we can't just get another provider and they own some of the lines. But I'm sure there's somebody here that might know that a little better than I or Karen.
Okay.
But, you know, I've been reading about this a little bit. It's been in the Monitor, and people are asking, and I don't know that can happen, but I've heard that I think it's because PDS has been here and then they did fiber optics and they have the setup at this time. Somebody know the answer?
We could have a discussion afterwards. Let's leave it at this for now, and we'll see what happens next. Is there someone in the audience with a question? Raise your hand, please. Gentlemen, no?
What is zero-based budgeting? I'm not an accountant, so.
The question is directed to Mr. Sherman. What is zero-based accounting? Can you give us a layman's quick answer?
Yeah, I can give you a quick answer. I think, the comments were made by the other two candidates here that the department heads come in with a budget, and what do? They start with their current operation. So they look at their personnel, supply expense, whatever other expenses they have, and they just figure out those expenses, what do they need for the following year. Zero-based budgeting throws all that out and says, you are responsible for, let's take the transfer station. You have a responsibility to do X, Y, Z. Let's start and say there are no employees, you have your equipment, that's a given. And you build your budget from zero base. In other words, I've got 10 people, I need to keep those. I paid this kind of salary, I gotta keep those. I paid this much to have stuff transferred out. Well, why? Can we reduce that? What can we do to make the department more efficient and cut costs? And that's what zero-based budgeting is. And that's why I said earlier, it doesn't make sense for the very small departments. But when you look at the police department, the fire department, the transfer station's one, it's a particular concern of mine because I think we got a big capital expenditure coming up there sometime. And to look at DPW, look at what's going on with the roads. If we could...
I'm going to stop you there because I think you answered the question about what it is. Thank you very much for telling us that. We have a couple of sort of quality of life questions that came in, and I think we'll do one of those. Does Warner have a need to seriously consider beautification needs? Do junk buildings, junk cars in the village need to be cleaned up? Why is Harry's garage left to haunt us? And I'm not from town, so I'm not sure what that's about, but I'm eager to hear the answers, and we'll ask the select board those questions. Ms. Minton, you go first.
Well, I see different parts to that question. I'll just say beautification sounds like a nice thing. People want to do plantings and work on beautification in the village. I do think Harry's garage is an icon, though. You're not going to just push someone out. I think there'll be a time that will move on, but at this point, it's somebody's property in town. But I'm sure, like we used to have the women's club and used to do different plantings. I know Martha's done a lot here in town with plantings along the statues and so forth. So I think if there's an interest, it's a great idea.
Thank you. And Ms. Coyne?
So So I think there is a difference as well between beautification and dealing with eyesores or people that are collecting perhaps more than their neighbors would like. Beautification, absolutely. I see nothing wrong with that as long as it's not going to cost the taxpayers additional money, right? We're not bringing in landscapers to do something fancy. I think when we talk about, I don't know about Harry's Garage specifically, but we are all homeowners and our neighbors do have a direct impact on us. So I think we need to explore options if we want to maintain our quality of life and our personal beautification, and we've got a neighbor who isn't.
All right, thank you. And let's address some questions to the Budget Committee about the food pantry that would like to run rent-free out of your community building. And what do you think about that? That will be on the ballot. But let's address this to the Budget Committee, and we'll start with Mr. Hanson.
How do I feel about food pantry?
Okay. No, if you don't mind just holding it up, it really picks up for this. Thank you.
Okay. I guess that me living in this town all my life is that there are a certain amount of people in this town that deserve. I am not one to judge on that deserve. I know that the food pantry provides needs, and that's it.
And, yeah, Mr. Bixby, go ahead.
Yeah, we had some discussion about that during the budget process, and I mean, it's tough because it does provide such a big service to the town, but you know, that building is a huge expense, and personally, I don't think asking $400 a month, I think that's something they can handle.
And Mr. Sherman, the food pantry running rent-free out of the community building?
Interesting question. I've read this thing that we all received, this publication or this 2-page letter that says Warner Area Food Pantry, and they make the comments that if they're charged $400 a month, it's going to hurt their distributions. The thing that this does not include is what the revenue of the food pantry was this last year. And in fact, I thought I had brought them with me, but I looked at their financial statements today. They took in between what they make at the clothing sales, contributions from individuals that live in the town, from the state. They've taken in well over $100,000. And they expend almost all of it in charity. I forget the percentage, but I think it's about 25% of that goes to other towns other than Warner that do not have food pantries. This is a food pantry where everybody can come and attend. So, saying all of that, understanding their amount of revenue, that they're selling clothing, making a profit. Yes, they do give it to the food pantry. It's all under one umbrella now. But that is, the other folks have said, that's a very expensive building. $400 a month is not unreasonable. So I would tell you that I think the rent should continue. If we start giving free rent to them, there's other groups that were also going to demand free rent, and the town cannot afford that right now.
All right, thank you, Mr. Sherman. Let's give the people up here a little break. If there are any candidates in the audience who would like to come and introduce themselves, would you come up front and I'll get a microphone for you? Just stand in front of the stage.
Hello everyone, my name is Bill Hansen and I'm running for the unopposed Budget Committee position. I was born and raised in New Hampshire, left when I was 17. I did 20 years in the Marine Corps, and then I was a police officer, fully retired now, and I moved here to Warner. I've been on the Ag Commission for the last 2 years, currently on the Housing Advisory Committee, and I saw an opportunity to not only learn about the budgeting process in town, but hopefully help make some changes. My dad told me you can't bitch about stuff unless you're willing to do something about it. So I'm also a fan of zero-based budgeting. I think most of us do it all the time at home, right? Every year we sit down and look at our finances. There's some things we'd like to have, and there's some things we have to have. And that's how I do my budget, and I think that's the direction maybe we should look at, like other people have talked about here tonight. So I'm running unopposed, but I still appreciate your vote.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Ben Frost. I'm running unopposed for town moderator. I'll be succeeding, assuming I win your votes, the position of Ray Martin. Ray told me that he had had enough. He wanted to retire from the position, and so I offered to run to succeed him. No one could ever replace Ray. What I pledge to you, if you do vote me in as moderator, is to remain utterly and always impartial. The job of the moderator is to help guide you all in your deliberations and not to impose his or her own will on the process. That is my pledge if you vote for me and elect me as moderator, and I certainly would appreciate it. Thanks very much.
Are there any other candidates in the hall who'd like to get up? Okay, well, thank you for those two. Here's a good question that can be for anybody, and I want a short answer. 1 minute on this, Sarah. What is your feeling about social media's impact on local politics? Ms. Coyne, let's start with you.
I would say it's a double-edged sword, right? We have more information today than we have ever had. And that can be a good thing, or it can be a misleading thing. And I think that there is responsibility in social media, or responsibility that is absolutely needed in social media, and we don't see a lot of that. There's a lot of keyboard warriors that like to stir up trouble and cause dissension. But at the same time, it's one of the major places that we get a lot of our information these days.
Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. Well, I do know that the town of Hopkinton, they do have a Facebook page, and it's, I think it's moderated by their town administrator, and it's a good way to get information out. As far as people in politics using social media, I do think there's a responsibility that when things get out of hand or are rude or condescending or inappropriate, that there's a responsibility for those that manage sites to nip that in the bud and cut it off. And I know that that's happened in Warner. I'm trying not to be on social media. I don't post. I don't feel it's appropriate as a select board member for me to be posting my positions on things. I also, as Ben states, try to remain neutral and try to do the work for the community. So I feel there's a place for social media. I think we need to have restraint and discipline and respect and build trust in our community. And if we can do that on social media, that's great. But as Karen said, there are a lot of people that just go on and on. So use it for good, but have self-discipline.
Mr. Bixby?
I think social media's been very good for the town to get the word out on emergency situations or, you know, different things that are going on in town, but, you know, it does, you know, people gotta be responsible with what they say, and they really gotta think about what they say, because, you know, it can do some damage if they're not careful.
Thank you. Yes.
I'm not much one for social media. I'm a farmer. I don't let a lot of the outside stuff influence me. If I need questions, I go to the barn and ask the cattle and the horses. Because they're going to tell me the truth. So when I start thinking about social media, I have to evaluate what I hear and make the best judgment I can for both sides of the avenue. And most of the time, the cattle are better than the horses.
I can't beat that response. I'm going to agree with the two folks, the selectmen, that we really need to get the inaccuracies off of social media. I have been amazed at the things, I mean, even when I was being considered for the budget committee, things that people posted about me on it were really laughable. And I think we all read it and we think it's accurate, it's true. A lot of what's there is not. So we need somebody to monitor it. But social media is a great way to disseminate information, which we've all said, and I think it should be used for that, but it shouldn't be used to stir the pot and to cause angst where there really isn't any need and there isn't any angst. So that's kind of my thoughts.
Thank you. And we're going to go quickly in this direction down the line with an answer to who is financing your campaign? Mr. Sherman?
Me, myself, and I.
Okay.
That's
fine.
By far.
The cows and horses, right? Yeah, you took
MasterCard.
the collection. Okay.
Me, although one resident did make a donation, which was appreciated.
Just me, although I have had several people make offers to help donate, I have graciously declined. I don't want anyone to ever think that the promises I make or the things that I do were ever influenced by anything that anyone ever donated.
Thank you. That question kind of surprised me in a local forum. We get that sometimes when I moderate state rep forums. All right, here's another question. And there are three questions here that have to do with the rail trail project. Who groaned? Come on now. They got a chance to answer this. All right. So one is very general. What thoughts do you have on the rail trail project? Are you for or against the proposed rail trail near Exit 9? And please explain why. But this one's a bit more specific, and the select board may have to address, select board candidates may have to address this. Why did the current select board make the decision to accept federal rail trail monies when the previous select board voted to have the question brought to town meeting first? So let's have Ms. Coyne answer that first, and then Ms. Minton, and then we'll get general answers from the other candidates.
So as to the question of why the current select board signed the contract and accepted the funds when the previous select board said they would take it to town vote is not a question I can answer. I'm not on the select board and I did not make that decision. That being said, had I been in that position, I absolutely would have brought it to town vote before construction ever began, because that was the motion that was made at that select board meeting, and that was the decision and what was told to the town. And to change that without any input from the town, I think is rather unconscionable.
Ms. Minton?
Yes, I do support the rail trail project, and at town meeting last year, there was a vote. I was not able to attend that meeting. But my understanding is legally the select board were able to make the decision to vote yes or no that we would be the licensed public agency, I think, that would move forward with that. So that was under the purview of the select board. The select board did receive a lot of communications from the community in support of this project. Letters, a lot of people attending hearings, and received that support and voted that this was a good project for the community. So
That's my answer. Thank you, Ms. Minton. And for the Budget Committee people, what do you see as your role in the rail trail project moving forward from here?
I think as far as the budget committee goes, I think you gotta look at the long-term maintenance of this. Yeah, we're gonna get the grant money and put it through, but I think, you know, there's gonna be a lot of long-term stuff we gotta look at down the road. And I think we gotta be careful, but I too agree, I think the people should have voted on it at town meeting.
Mr. Hanson?
Oh, 25, maybe, I don't know, it was 25 years ago, maybe less than that, 20. I sat right in here and I watched the town appropriate $19,000 to appropriate to have a trail down by the Riverside Park, to build a trail, a walking trail, okay, all along the backside, along the river, okay, behind all the ball fields to go. I didn't agree with it because it led to nowhere. Because at the end of that trail, okay, which was on the ball field side, okay, bang, drop a bridge in the highway. Now that trail took $19,000 of taxpayers' money, where they could have done the same thing, walking the fields. Okay, so my question on the rail trail system, are we gonna end up with the same thing that we spent money for, okay, to create a trail that no longer exists, okay, but the fields do, so you can still walk down there, but the trail doesn't. So my concern is if we go ahead and appropriate all this stuff for this rail trail system, which I have a hard time believing that the initial talk about the rail trail system was to build from here to there. Well, realistically, if we all look at it, and I grant it, may all the people need the exercise and all this and all that, can it really, can it really happen the way they want? That's the question we need to ask.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hanson. Mr. Sherman, your views on the rail trail?
Yeah, I am conflicted on this question because I am the secretary of the rail trail.
Oh.
But let me say a couple comments. One is, if we didn't have federal monies and we had raised the money to do the rail trail, this would have never would have never come before the Warner community, because none of the proposed construction is going to take place on any Warner property. And that's kind of surprising that there's been the negativity there is. And there's going to be no cost to the town of Warner. The only reason Warner is involved is because the state said they wanted another organization, another party, to monitor the spending of the funds. We have raised our portion of it, which is $300,000, and the town is only going to monitor the funds. There will be no cost to Warner, so. But none of this is on Warner land, so it's all on federal land. So anyhow, I'm not going to tell you if I'm for it or not. Being part of the rail trail, it's, like I say, I'm conflicted. But by the way, the rail trail is 34 miles long. I mean, it's going through every town starting in Concord. And we have portions of the rail trail in every town it's going through. And the town of Concord, city of Concord, is for the rail trail 100%. The support we get from Concord is amazing. Bradford's for it. Kentucky is for it. Hopkinton is doing a lot for the rail trail. So,
all right,
just throw that out.
Thank you, Mr. Sherman. Let's take a question from the audience, if there is one. Yes, the gentleman here in the gray sweatshirt.
Follow-up question on the Warner Pantry. probably to both budget and the candidates for select person. Did the current budget committee, are they the ones that recommended to the current select board that the $400 a month be charged? And if they were, that's fine, but we just need to know, and obviously a vote can be taken on that at the town meeting. What would be the positions of the two ladies running for the select board?
Okay, so we had a question on the rent in general. Are you talking about ownership of the whole building? 'Cause
No, I'm talking just about the rent, the $400 a month.
Okay, real quick, I think we covered a bit of this, but let's do it again. Ms. Minton, say.
Okay, so just for information for the community, the food pantry in the past has paid rent in this building because the food pantry was part of the community action program for years. It was only when during the pandemic the food pantry changed to be organized by people that left the food pantry that there was no rent paid. In spring of 2023, it was negotiated with that select board, I was not on the select board at that time, with the food pantry, and then I think the clothing closet, negotiated what the fee might be for that rental, for the two big rooms they use, and I think it's about a third of the building, I'm not quite sure. So they whittled it down to about $400 a month. Also, I think Gear Up, which is a homeschooler, has a reduced rent, and CAP, I'm not quite sure their rent, or the Boys and Girls Club, which is another nonprofit. So there are 4 nonprofits in that space. The food pantry is a very important service for the town of Warner, and it is supported by the community, by volunteers, donors, and the taxpayers. This service serves the needs of the people that benefit greatly, benefit the residents. I'm trying to speed this up, Liz. But I feel that we can support the food pantry and request them to contribute a minimal amount of rent. As Rick said, there's a lot of cost to that building. So I think it's fair that all nonprofits in the building pay some rent. And there is a significant reduction for food pantry and thrift shop. And as somebody said, that it not only serves our town, I think it was Jim said that, but it serves many towns. So I feel that the minimal rent is fair, and I think that's, as a select board, we're trying to look at fairness for the whole community.
All right, thank you, Ms. Minton. And Ms. Coyne, your views on the rent, the fairness of the whole thing?
So I can't speak to the first part about who recommended what to what. I know in the negotiations, I think it started off at $1,400 and it negotiated its way down. Yeah. I personally feel that the food pantry should not be paying rent. It's just my personal feeling. I think that they do a lot of good. I think that there might be creative ways for the towns that are outside of Warner that we are providing the service to. Perhaps we look to those towns to help defray some of those costs. I don't know. But when it comes to the food pantry itself, I think that that they should live rent-free.
All right, and I'm going to change that question a bit for the budget committee, because the question that came in was, can a budget committee member have any real effect on the bottom line of the budget? But let's talk about, in terms of that community building, do you think, if you are elected, that there is a way that you can affect that part of the budget? Go ahead, Mr. Sherman, you can start.
The budget committee can do a lot with the budget, and they work hand in hand with the selectmen. The budget actually is the selectmen's budget. So as far as the impact, yeah, the budget committee can make quite an impact, because we can go to all the department heads, and getting back to what I said earlier, if we can implement some zero-based budgeting, let the town folks know what we've done. I think that can save quite a bit of money. Things that need to get done, we don't have the personnel. We really need to look at ways to increase revenue. I mean, forget about the taxes. I'm not talking about taxes. We get about $1 million, I think it's gonna be about $1.2 million, $1.3 million this year in other types of revenues, fees. When you get your car license, we get a portion of that fee and things like that. Are there other ways we could increase and get fees? And the budget committee can make a real impact on those. We can make an impact on personnel, but that would have to be approved by the select committee. So, but there's a lot that the budget committee can do. So, and that's one of my goals.
Could we pass that down to Mr. Hanson? Specifically about that community building and the fees that it generates, what do you see as the budget committee's role?
During the stint that I was on the budget committee, that building was in conversation a lot. I guess what bothered me the most about that is that, I don't know, I haven't studied it long enough before, probably 6, 7 years ago, we lost the biggest renter. Okay? The problem that I have in this town is that we never look forward to what we're gonna run into. We just sit back and wait. We don't need to sit back and wait, we need to project. Okay, if you're gonna lose the biggest renter out of that building, okay, then let's get off our horses and get going to fulfill that. Yes, that building is a sore for this town. But as far as I'm concerned, I went to school in that building, along with a bunch that are in here. At least, we could look at that building and maybe take action on that building many years ago than sitting here tonight talking about an eyesore that is happening in front of us because we did nothing.
Could I just see a wave of hands of how many people in the room did go to school in that building? Look at that, we do have some others there. All right, thank you, thank you. Mr. Bixby, what do you see as the budget committee's role in connection with that community building?
I kind of like Karen's idea about reaching out to other towns, you know, that use the food pantry for that service and, you know, try to get some help from them.
Okay. Let's change the pace a little bit. With our return to spring, hang on, I'm going to ask a question from the paper first. With our return to spring comes the roar of motorcycles. Many communities throughout New England have noise ordinances. This is a quality of life issue. Should we have one, and who would enforce it? So this is quite a change of pace. Short answer, please. Let's start with Ms. Coyne.
I think that's a really interesting question. I think in order to create an ordinance, you would have to have it be able to be enforceable. And I don't know that we have the resources or the infrastructure to be able to enforce something like that.
Okay. This doesn't have to be a good idea. This doesn't have to be a long answer because I realize it's coming a bit out of left field for you people.
When I heard the motorcycles, I mean, we have 89 coming right through Warner. That makes a lot of noise. I don't know about where you live, but where I live, it echoes through the valley. So, you know, what are we going to do with the highway? And it would be difficult on the 4th of July when we have our shooting off of the cannon. We kind of like that tradition. So, yeah, I don't know how we would enforce it, but, you know. Motorcycles, I don't know if they're going mostly down 103, I would imagine.
Okay, Mr. Bixby, noise ordinances, motorcycles just being one of them?
Oh, this state is live free or die. I don't think we need any noise ordinances.
I have been on the boards of 2 motorcycle associations. One I ran for about 6 years. This is a very difficult issue. I think instead of having an ordinance, maybe what we could do is suggest that we get some signs. Put the signs up at either end of 103 through town, because that's probably about the only place we could do it, to ask the motorcycles to quietly go through town. And that may be a way to do it, because otherwise, the comments that were made by Karen and that, to get a noise ordinance to make it effective, it's very difficult. I've been on both sides of this issue. So anyhow, we should put some signs up to bring the level down. I mean, just like some communities, if you go through, you'll see signs for truckers. No, low gear to slow down. Why? Because that makes noise. We could do the same thing for motorcycles.
Thank you. And we had a question in the audience back there, the blue.
My name is Dick Mitchell. I'd like to live on Collins Road, which is close to the path every morning since 1978. Back when the phone company was owned by a family, and they sold the rights to TDS. That's neither here nor there. I'd like to congratulate everyone here. I'd like you to look around. How many people do you know? We've been here since 1978, and I don't know most of you. I don't even recognize most of you. We don't meet in town at the small stores. We don't.
Is there a question here, sir?
There's not a question. I just want to congratulate you.
Okay.
And I'd like to say, Liz, if I can, if we can sit here and talk about the things we're talking about tonight, we can talk about damn near anything. We can put our heads together and make this town the kind of place that these guys are talking about.
All right, and I would congratulate all of you for coming out and sharing your thoughts. Thank you. In the tan jacket.
Just want to clarify one thing before I have a question. Was the Boys and Girls Club is not a non-profit, it's a for-profit organization. But
It charges a fee, but is it a not-for-profit as well?
it's for-profit.
It's for-profit, this gentleman is saying. All right, thank you.
I have 8 questions here tonight, but I heard a story today of a middle-class person in town who's been in town a lot of years, raised his children here, put all his resources into his property and his house, and he was practically in tears because he and his wife are looking to move out of town because of the taxes. So my question is, what are we going to do to lower the current taxes? It's going to take an extreme change in the policies of this town to lower the taxes. I have some ideas myself. I don't want to voice them.
We're not going to get your ideas right now, sir.
I said I'm not going to voice them.
Okay.
But I am looking to the selectmen and the budget committee. Something drastic has to be done to resolve the situation and keep long-term residents in town.
Okay, so let's try to get this down to a simple question, because we started by we had a question about reducing taxes. But if there's one thing that hasn't been brought up yet that you see would be a way of cutting at least the town's share of taxes, which we realize is, what did you say, 34% or something? A third, okay. So, if we can't deal with the school right now. Is there one thing that you see might make a difference in the taxes or in bringing in more revenue that hasn't been mentioned yet? Faith, Minton, would you like to start with that?
So I think we could start cutting some of the services. Maybe we could cut plowing the roads. Maybe we could have the recycling center open one day a week. Maybe the library could be open one day a week. Maybe not hire another policeman. We were discussing perhaps combining tax collector and town clerk. We're not prepared to do that at this time. A lot of the increase in our taxes are downshifting from the state. The state has really downshifted costs to the municipalities over many years. J.D. Colcord, one of our select board members in the past, said this 20 years ago. They're paying a lot less money to the schools for building aid, for retirement. That's all being downshifted to the municipalities. So if we want to lower the taxes, we can lower just 1/3 of that portion, which is our municipal tax rate. We still have the county, we still have the state education, we have the local education, and the county. So there's 3 other components besides municipality. So if we want to lower our tax portion, it's services, because the town of Warner provides services to the residents. So people can think about what, whether you want your road plowed once or not fixed, what do you want cut? So people have to decide what services you'd like cut. Or we work at the state level with state legislators to try and figure out how we can get more state aid for our schools, because our school portion, public education, is a big part of our taxes.
Okay, Mr. Bixby, can you name one thing that you see would cut taxes or bring in more revenue, which in effect does the same thing?
Yeah, I think when Jonathan Lord was selectman, he started working on selling some of these properties that the town got in back taxes. And I think we need to continue working on that. It seems like the last 2 years we haven't done much of that, but I think we need to get those back on the tax roll.
Okay, and Mr. Hanson, one thing that the town could do to cut taxes or increase revenue?
I'm not one for just go ahead and cut it. What I like to do is turn back and look at the base. Okay, the base tells us what it's all about. I think that one thing that can help us out is that when the budget committee resumes, okay, they have to look at, and previous budget committee members already know what we need to operate, okay, and provide the responsibility to the taxpayers to provide the services. I don't think you can just go cut this, cut that. I think you have to look at the entire base where you start, okay, a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there. Everybody says that, I've lived in here all my life. Everybody says the school is this, the county's this, and all this and all that. I look at something today. The county hasn't gone up hardly anything in the last 4 years. The other thing that bothered me was the talk about revenue, okay? When there was mention of revenue, okay, and all the time that I was on the budget committee, we were very conservative with revenue because it was always projected, okay? Now, if I was what we just went through the last 3 or 4 years with COVID, and you had COVID money out there, which was projected revenue, okay? If that projected revenue was going to go away because COVID is going away, not all, okay, then I would start to be looking at other ways, okay, of revenue coming in, okay? That's what you need to look at. In order to create a good budget, you have to have a pretty good idea of what your revenue is.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Sherman, you already told us about zero base. Is there one other thing that you would suggest to either cut taxes or raise revenues?
It's hard to answer one. I think the comment that was made about planning, that's what we need to do. Everything we look at is 1 year, capital budget, 1 year. We need to look at a budget for 5 to 7 years for capital. And I would propose that if I'm elected, I'm going to do that, because some of the expenditures that go like this, and we need to level it out, and the community needs to know that. Operating budget, yes, that's 1 year, but capital and some of the future expenses, we need to look at those. And we need to focus to, Harry put together a page, he shared it with me, of ways we could increase revenue. We don't have any time to do that. I'd like to see us do that. I'd like to see us go after more grants. There are grants out there we can get for things. We don't have the people, we don't have the time to do it, because everybody's stretched so thin. There are federal and state grants. We don't go after these aggressively, and this is something that we need to really, I think, consider.
Thank you, Mr. Sherman. Ms. Coyne, one thing that we might be able to do to either cut taxes or raise revenues.
So I don't know that there's any one thing, right? And to several of the points made tonight, zero-based budgeting, yes. I think there are creative ways to look at how we're spending. I think first and foremost, we need to be doing third-party audits to look at what was spent and how it was spent. I think there are revenue options, like what I mentioned about the food pantry. There are other towns using our food pantry, getting the full benefit, but not sharing their burden with that. When we look at things like, we had almost no snow this year. I think we probably saved a fair amount of money on snow plowing this year.
I'm knocking on wood.
Yeah, we had an open position for a police officer that didn't get filled. There should be cash sitting there from that situation. So I think there are a lot of creative ways. I think we need to be looking at our spending policies and who can spend and then just get reimbursed. Looking at the journals, I was kind of shocked at some of the things that we spend money on as a town. So I don't think there's any one thing, but it's not all doom and gloom. We immediately have to cut our vital services, right? That's not how we're gonna go about this. We need to take a look at where we're spending and figure out where our opportunities are. And the COVID money, to hear everybody be shocked that the COVID money is running out, how could you not know?
No more test kits is what I heard on the news. They're gone. We're going to change gears here a little bit. This person writes on this card, I've observed a lot of bullying and harsh words exchanged in town. People treating each other disrespectfully, not listening to one another, and intimidating others. Perhaps some of you have experienced this, perhaps others have not. So the question is, for the select board, if elected to the select board, what would you do about this kind of behavior? Ms. Coyne?
So that's a huge question, right? And we see it every day. One of the things on the planning board, and as the planning board chair, you have to learn how to mediate, right? And make sure that in those forums that you aren't letting people bully or intimidate or even speak over. And it's not always the easiest thing in the world, but I know at least in my position today, I work really hard to try and keep everyone kind and respectful to one another. And I think there's a responsibility of all of us to raise our hands or call it out when we see that type of behavior, because no one person is going to fix that. It's going to take all of us to be intolerable of that amongst ourselves.
Faith Mitten, what would you suggest if you are re-elected to the school select board?
Well, this actually did come up at the select board, and I have actually witnessed this in a couple meetings, not often at the select board. One of the meetings I was in, there was a lot of talking and snickering right behind me. I was in the audience. This was probably in January. And it went on throughout the meeting, an hour meeting, and I think I turned around and kind of glared at the person, and then after that I got up and just walked to the person and said, I find that very disrespectful. And the person turned around and got right in my face and yelled back at me, and I was just totally shocked. Well, anyhow, my background is education, teaching. One of the things we do in classrooms is we have a code of conduct. We'll just call it that. We have expectations for how we conduct ourselves with respect, with trust, to listen to different points of view, and everyone has a voice. Well, since I guess it must have been November, December, a situation arose in one of the meetings in the community, and it was brought to the attention of the select board, and I said, you know, I don't want to point the finger at any one group, any one committee, but I will take it upon myself to work on a code of conduct for public meetings. Well, that code of conduct has been posted, and I can see it in the back of the room, and it's posted in downstairs room, meeting room, so maybe you'll get a chance to look at it. If there's anyone here that is a chairman, like planning board, Karen, of any of the committees, it would be helpful if you would look at it and disseminate it amongst your committee, and just, we would agree as a community that we will treat each other with respect, that we will listen to each other, that we'll model how we wish to be treated. And I think social media and what's happening on the national stage is infiltrating into our communities. And that was one of the reasons when I was asked to be a select board member, I didn't hesitate. I said, I will do this for my community. I don't know how, but that's the way I like to operate, is how to listen, to be kind, and that's what I would expect from people in the community. And if we all do this, so thank you.
All right, thank you. Let's change the question a bit for the budget committee people. And I've lost the paper here, but it said, in effect, how would you work with people with whom you disagree if you are elected to the budget committee? Mr. Hanson, do you want to start?
When I was on the budget committee, I disagreed a lot. And then I didn't get the answers that I wanted at the beginning, first couple of years, but as things went on, okay, I started getting answers. Okay, because it's very important to get those answers, because they put a number in front of us. They better have the answer. And to me, we're not doing that anymore. We need to get back, like I said before, to the basics. Okay, if you're going to come in to the budget committee, okay, and you're going to provide what you think your number is, your need, or your want, okay, have answers. I can remember all the years that I was on the budget committee, and all of a sudden that one night somebody says, hey, we got to have a time, we got to go to bed. Because we would fight throughout the night.
So how would you prevent that from happening now if you
Start
were
over. Let's start over, let's get back down to basics, okay, and get the answers that the budget committee needs. Because the budget committee is one that writes the budget for us to operate, not the selectmen. They bring it to us. We have to put the budget. We have to be responsible for what we're going to put in front of you people to make happen.
All right, thank you. Mr. Sherman, how would you work with people with whom you disagree if elected?
Well, there are a number of people that do disagree, and they become quite vocal about it, and sometimes even angry. I think you listen to it, you pause. Sometimes you can't just directly respond, and then you do some analysis, and then you get back to it. I think that's the way I did it this year. I don't think it does any good to get back in somebody's face. All that does is aggravate them further. I think there's some very good ideas that have come from town folks, and we met once or twice a week, so it wasn't like we had big gaps between our meetings. And I actually went to some of the department heads to get answers about certain things that came up, and then we'd get back to the budget committee. And I think that's the way we have to address this. It's not a knee-jerk reaction. It's one that we have to be careful about, but yet we have to provide a service to the community.
Thank you. And Mr. Bixby, how would you work with people with whom you disagree if elected to the budget committee?
The biggest thing you gotta do is just gotta respect everybody and, listen to what they gotta say and take it in and, do the best you can.
Thank you. Well, okay, so let's go to the two incumbents, the two people who've served before, and tell us one thing that you did that the public may not be aware of in terms of setting the budget. And I don't care who goes first.
First of all, I don't think I'm sitting here complaining about the process. This was my first, 8 months on the committee. I think the committee does a yeoman's job. I mean, we go through everything, but what I have done this year is I've gone to the department heads individually. Like I've gone to Tim over at DPW, I've gone to Varick, gone to town clerk, I've gone to other folks to find out, some resources in the town that are knowledgeable people to get answers and to start looking forward. I don't think I've ever heard the budget committee is supposed to do a long-range planning budget. That's not been part of the purview of the budget committee. I think it's something that should be done, and I'm proposing that we do put together a 5 to 7 year capital budget. I don't see any reason why we can't do it. I think there's individual departments actually, I believe, have budgets that go beyond 1 year, but we don't consolidate them community-wide. The police department might have it, and
Okay.
fire department.
Let's stop it at that. So that's what you have tried to do, you'd like to do more going forward. All right? And Mr. Bixby, what have you done to try to improve the process for the past year?
I only recall one time where the chairman asked if we could all come in and come up with ways to reduce things, and I suggested something, and it didn't really go anywhere, so I thought it was frustrating.
So sometimes your efforts don't work, is what you're saying.
Right. But I see what you're saying, because yes, I voted for I voted on most everything.
Okay, thank you. So at this point, in about a minute and a half, I would like the candidates to use the opportunity to tell us about something they haven't spoken about tonight, an issue in town, some way you would do things differently. So give us a fresh perspective. And Mr. Bixby, you're up first. Remember, you drew the lucky card.
So I've enjoyed being here tonight. I think you'd be in safe hands with either the three of us. Well, you're going to get two anyway, but unless somebody writes in, which might happen. But I think if nothing else comes from this, I've encouraged other young people to get involved. Alfred's always, encouraging young people to get involved. So, that's what I hope comes from this.
Thank you. Mr. Hanson, something you haven't had a chance to tell us tonight about the budget committee. Not no, thank you though.
I'll go back to the beginning. I sat in here years ago and watched something that really turned my stomach. Knowing that our fathers, there's people that I know what they worked for and how they made things happen. And I felt that night when I walked out that door that I needed to do the same thing. Oh, because I saw stuff happening that I thought that your father, my father would roll over. So I decided that, so they didn't come down on me, that I would try my damnedest to make things better. And the 12 years that I was on this, it went really, really good. We were very competitive on both sides of the aisle, and things were good. I just don't think that's happening anymore, and we need to get back to that.
Thank you. Mr. Sherman, something you haven't had a chance to tell us tonight.
one of the things.
One of the things that I would like to do is spend more time with the department heads and better understand how they operate. Did some of that this year, which I mentioned, but I think that would be a better way to be more effective with the budget committee. Another thing is I would really like to get into the accounting systems that we use, and I know Clyde's here, and work with the CPA, because I feel that's not being handled well. In fact, I think it's being handled, I think the best that Clyde can do, but we need to make some changes there. So that's another area that I would like to get involved in that I haven't mentioned earlier.
Thank you. And Karen Coyne, one thing that you haven't had a chance to tell us tonight.
We moved here as our forever home, and this was the first year that I actually thought that even if I pay off my home, I may not be able to afford to retire here. And I ran last year, and my stance hasn't changed from then. What it has done, though, is make me absolutely passionate about the things that we have talked about tonight. And I promise I will work tirelessly to ensure that the town of Warner remains a great and affordable place to live and raise a family. And I think the residents of Warner deserve a representative who actually listens and shares their value. So thank you.
Thank you. And Faith Minton, something you haven't had a chance to tell us.
Well, I think it's important how we act as a community. I think there's a lot of polarization. I think Warner has a history of coming together as a community. We have our history of the Fall Foliage Festival where we all work together for common good for the community. I'd like to see more effort on all of us coming together. Maybe it's not us here, but all the groups in our community. We haven't talked at all about housing. There is a need for housing. I spoke with the superintendent of schools a few weeks ago, and there are teachers that cannot afford to live locally and need to drive an hour to get to work. There's a survey that's been created by the Housing Committee, so it's important that the town engage in creating solutions to create housing that fit with Warner's rural character. And I think, as Karen has said earlier, if we come together as a community, we can create creative ways to solve some of these issues together. So that's my goal, that I want to continue in that endeavor. And thank you. Thank you all for this. This is our closing. This is our closing.
That was your closing.
So,
Yes.
wait. I got one more thing to say.
Okay. You still have time.
Would appreciate your vote on Tuesday, March 12th.
And at this point, I lift my ban on clapping so that we can thank the candidates for their candid. Thank you all for coming. We didn't ask every single question, but I think we hit the topics. So again, thank you for coming. Aye.
This program is supported by H.R. Clough and Kearsarge Heating. Their full-service model offers oil delivery, propane, motor fuels with design, installation, service, and maintenance of all types of oil, gas, and alternative energy systems, as well as air conditioning, water conditioning systems, and their highly trained and friendly staff will assist you throughout the process of buying, installing, and servicing a full line of energy products. H.R. Clough and Kearsarge Heating. Echo Communications, a digitally integrated commercial printer and mailer located in New London, New Hampshire since 1997, with roots going back much further as the country press, AccuMail, and the home of the Kearsarge shopper. Echo Communications. MainStreet BookEnds of Warner, for books, toys, games, cards, gifts, and a gallery of local art. MainStreet BookEnds of Warner. The Innertown Record, your weekly hometown community newspaper covering the Kearsarge-Sunapee Sunshine region of New Hampshire. The Innertown Record.
This is an historic building. It's been in Warner for a very long time. It was built in 1833 and first served as a Baptist church, and in 1864 was turned over to the Masons, who ran it as the Harris Lodge until they turned it over to us in 2020. Their interest in turning it over to us corresponded with our longstanding interest in MainStreet Warner for promoting community spirit here in Warner through education, through the arts, and through providing spaces that allow the community to gather and interact with one another. So we have this gorgeous building, and we're very excited about the purposes to which it might be put. And we've turned to Jason for his help in transforming this old and historic place in the center of Warner into a new performing arts center and community gathering place for this town.
It's been a real privilege to be brought into this process here in Warner. I've had the opportunity to work on a number of historic buildings in surrounding towns, and this is a real gem that you have acquired and are in a position to help bring into the future. So over time, a number of layers have been added to this building, and we're kind of at the point where we're starting to peel some back. The 1964 types of renovations that had occurred, where drywall was introduced, where everything had previously been plaster. Some of the windows had been boarded over, so we're really thrilled to be able to experience them again. And we've tried to give a nod to some of the original architecture and preserve as much as we possibly can. At the same time, as an assembly space, we're looking to ensure that we have, proper ventilation, that all of the framing is adequate to support everybody as we're in here, connecting and engaging. And then it's really terrific that the Masons in the 70s were able to establish a kitchen space here, so that will be an integral part of the future use of this building for performance, nourishment, and hopefully edification.
A general sort of 2-year understanding about the completion of the entire project, but we have spoken recently about trying to finish the community kitchen within about a calendar year. As we've thought about this space, we've thought about it not only as a performing arts space and as a place where the community might gather, we've also thought of it as a really important educational space for the town. MainStreet Warner has long had a relationship with Simon's Elementary School next door, and we want to deepen that relationship by offering this space as a venue for music lessons, for music performances, the adjoining kitchen space as a place where students might learn about nutrition, might learn about cooking. And we even envision down the road this as a space where writers and other interesting speakers might come to share their thoughts with the assembled citizenry of Warner and from those people who are interested in adjoining towns. And that we think will make a difference to Warner for a very, very long time to come. The plans that we have will be expensive. One of the reasons that the Masons chose to sell the building to MainStreet Warner was because of our 20-year history of serving the community, as evidenced by Jim Mitchell Park and the amphitheater across the street. And they believed in us. They believed that we would renovate this building, undertake this project in such a way that the community of Warner and its spirit would be honored by this building and their gift for years to come. We have begun the process of securing funds for this project. We have received a number of generous grants from various sources, but there's still a lot of ground to cover. We are looking forward in the months ahead to launching a fairly big capital campaign for the purpose of raising more funds that we'll need to complete this building. But we also invite the contributions of people at every possible level, work provided, help in raising funds, to make this vision, this dream come true. If this is something that appeals to you and you would like to help us, please visit our website.